Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of Discover Islam Center, I warmly welcome all of you, brothers and sisters, to today's event. In order to begin proceedings, it gives me pleasure to call upon Brother Tariq to recite the Qirat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الذين قالوا ربنا الله ثم استقاموا تتنزل عليهم الملائكة ألا تخافوا ولا تحزنوا وأبشروا بالجنة التي كنتم توعدون نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم ولكم فيها ما تدعون نزلا من غفور رحيم ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين ولا تستوي الحسنة ولا السيئة ادفع بالتي هي أحسن فإذا الذي بينك وبينه عداوة كأنه ولي حميم وما يلقاها إلا الذين صبروا وما يلقاها إلا ذو حظ عظيم وإما ينزغنك من الشيطان نزغ فاستعذ بالله إنه هو السميع العليم.
Thank you very much, Brother Tariq, for that most eloquent recital. The Discover Islam Center has been engaged in the presentation of Islam to the non-Muslim community for the last 2 decades. The Discover Islam Training Initiative, also known as DITI, was launched in January 2010 as an initiative to fulfill a dire responsibility of Discover Islam to the Muslim Ummah. In today's occasion, we mark the inaugural session of the DITI Dawah training course, Basic Level 2016. Being a Da'i is not just a responsibility, but is a very special privilege bestowed upon all of us who wish to grab such a golden opportunity. Carrying out the noble task of Dawah is a fulfillment of an obligation that we all have to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's an activity which was carried out by our noble Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and following in his footsteps is indeed a most treasured activity. And also, while bearing in mind that the noble Prophet is the greatest man who had walked the face of the earth. Any person to whom the useful knowledge is conveyed by way of Dawah would of course supplicate for that particular person. And likewise, when you talk about Dawah, it's a continuous reward for that particular individual, may it be in the hereafter, or may it be even after he has passed off for that matter. Besides these benefits of fulfillments in terms of dawah, there's also a great spiritual fulfillment. It allows you to be a part of that change that you actually want in society. It strengthens your relationship and your faith with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, it enables you to attain eternal bliss and fulfillment and happiness, or self-satisfaction for that matter. Leaving your good selves with these few words, I would like to urge all participants in this event to make maximum benefit of this most special event, I would have to say. I'm quite excited, and I believe all of you are as well. Moving on with the agenda, it gives me pleasure to call upon with the Mohamed Quadir to carry out the inaugural address.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem. Ali wa sahabi ajma'in. Birahmatika ya Arhamar Rahimin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
It's been a long day, huh? Tired? Let's prep it up a little bit, inshallah. I'll bore you first with a short story. And I'll keep it very short because apparently I'm also doing the workshop today. So you'll hear a lot of me the rest of this evening. So I'll make it very short. Tiny, small story that I experienced. This happened several years back, back in 2002. The way I describe it is it was what I would call a perfect moment. I don't know if any of you have really experienced. If you have, then that's amazing. But I experienced what I thought was a perfect moment. A moment in time that inshallah will sit with me for the rest of my life. And it really touched me, made a big difference in my life at that time. For those of you who are familiar with the West or who've lived in America, any of you here know what a Chuck E. Cheese is?
Yes.
Saud knows. Okay. Shabir, good. MashaAllah. So he knows what a Chuck E. Cheese is. The Chuck E. Cheese is one of these places like McDonald's, but the play area of McDonald's. So we had gone on the day of Eid, or I think the second day of Eid, taken our children there. The kids were playing in the rides and all, and having fun. And I was sitting there. I was kind of miserable because I had to spend an entire morning, early in the morning, out here at a Chuck E. Cheese, not really doing a lot. And I'm looking around and I see people of all kinds. White people, brown people, black people, fathers, mothers, with their kids, with children, and different people having a really great time, having fun with their children, at a fun place, enjoying themselves. Muslim, non-Muslim alike. There were quite a few Muslim families there. It was the second day of Eid. And living in a Western country where there are not many activities to do in a halal environment, finding a place like this where a family can get together is something a lot of Muslims do. So here I was at a Chuck E. Cheese, sitting there, and just for once observing other people. I don't know if any of you do that. Go to a mall and just look at other people. Of course, you might be called a stalker. Don't do that. The cops might be called in. The mall cop will come and ask what you're doing. But for once, I'm starting and I'm just looking at these people, and I'm looking at other families, and that perfect moment happened. When I thought I saw a father playing with his 2-3-year-old, pushing him up in the air, jumping up and down, holding him and everything, really happy. And I thought to myself, this man is just like me. He has kids, he has a wife probably, has kids, has parents for sure, has a life, goes to work probably the way I do, has the same things that I go through. All the feelings that I have, everything that makes me what I think to be a special person, this person's also a special person. This person's a unique person. And it was almost like time came to a stop at that time. And I'm looking at this person for the first time, looking at other people in this way. In that every single person around me is special, is unique. Every one of these human beings around us is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like I am. I think I'm the most special person in the world. If any of you thinks otherwise, I think you're crazy. But I'm sure each and every one of you thinks that way, right? That we're the most special person around. There's nobody more special than us. To ourselves, we're the most special person around. But now think about the other person, your brother, your sister, your neighbor right now, the person sitting right next to you. That person has feelings. That person has parents and children and ambitions and dreams. They have the same kind of ideas and dreams and feelings like you do. They are special. And when we come to realize that each and every human being is special, regardless of who that person is, regardless of where they came from, regardless of what faith that person practices, whether that person accepts or rejects Allah, they are still Allah's creation. And they are the most beautiful of all creation, just like I am. So that day it dawned on me, that special moment where I'm thinking, I am so special, but so is this person, and so is this person, and so is this person. And that I felt was a revelation, where I'm thinking, if all these people are so special, and all these people are unique, and all these people have dreams and ambitions, and they come from a long line of people before them to become who they are, and they have lives, and they have families and everything, then when I do da'wah to them, when I reach out to them with the message of Islam, shouldn't I treat them the way I want to be treated? Shouldn't I look at them the way I want to be looked at? And I felt that was a perfect moment for me. And so whenever I got an opportunity, I tried to recreate that moment. A moment when I look at other people and I don't want to judge them. And I don't want to say that this person's a Muslim or not a Muslim, or this person's a kafir or a Christian or what have you. But just look at that person as a human being. Look at that person the way I would want to look at myself. When I look in the mirror and I see myself, I'd like to look at other people the same way. That they are mirrors of me and I am mirrors of them. This is in a nutshell, and we're going to talk more about this later today, in a nutshell how I understand or understood that particular day what it means to be a da'i. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you very much, brother, for those inspirational words through personal experience, which indeed act as a great value addition to all of us. Moving on with the agenda, I would now like to call upon Brother Abdul Aziz Khatak in order to deliver the course outline.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Amongst the many pioneering initiatives that Discover Islam is DITI. Over the years, it has benefited hundreds of and still continues to impart much needed training to all those interested in da'wah. DITS courses delve into the various aspects of da'wah and very comprehensively, brought to you by brothers who have years of experience. Now everyone knows why da'wah is important, right? It's a command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the ayah ادعوا إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة. What this course would do is provide the participants with adequate knowledge to commence da'wah, to do da'wah, or to initiate da'wah to non-Muslims. The participant will learn the art of delivering the message to the non-Muslims. It not only talks about the theory of da'wah, but brings for its participants practical know-how that without doubt enriches your perspective as a da'i. Of course, over time, as you wade through da'wah practically, you will be adding your own personal experience, which in turn will be assets for future da'is. For no matter how much you study da'wah, your personal encounter will be different from the other. The objective of this course is to spread the message of Islam, of course, in the right perspective to every non-Muslim in Bahrain. And of course, if you are out of Bahrain, this would help you a lot as well. Another objective is to produce more da'is in the field of da'wah for Discover Islam, and to enable da'is to begin the dialogue easily with non-Muslims. It will give you confidence to present Islam to non-Muslims and adequate knowledge to converse with non-Muslims from different faith and background. This course is meant for all Muslim men and women, professionals, teachers, students, homemakers who are new in da'wah, and all those who would like to begin da'wah to non-Muslims. And if I may steal a line from a very famous TV commercial, DITI will give you wings and a motherly push into the vast expanse of da'wah. It is then for you to fly, for the reward of your endeavor can't be paid by anyone but by the King of the Kings, and with what generosity we can't imagine. I wish you all the best of luck. Jazakumullah khair.
Thank you very much, brother, for that most insightful information on the course outline. It now gives me pleasure to call upon brother Mohamed Mujahid to give us the introduction of the trainers.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulihil Kareem, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
MashaAllah, new faces, it's nice to see again. Most of you might be knowing some of the trainers, and probably the newcomers might not be knowing. So it's my job and my duty to let you introduce the trainers of this course, inshallah. Do you really like to know the trainers? Yes or no? Yes. The trainers are, mashallah, you people are lucky enough, I must say this, because you are being trained with very highly skilled and qualified people here. And not just the qualification and skills they got, they are also the people who were out on the field and doing dawah. So those are the experienced people you will be trained by, and be assured that you are in the right hands, inshallah. The first trainer I would like to introduce is Brother Mohamed Quadir. May I request Brother Mohamed Quadir to please kindly. Let me just talk about Brother Mohamed Quadir. He is the founder and CEO of Discover Islam USA, and also the board advisor and executive consultant for Discover Islam in Bahrain. Actively involved in Islamic education and media for over 25 years in various parts of the world. And he produces a lot of documentary films, and director have produced many documentaries connecting to the Islam, and he has also authored books on Islam and lectured in North and Central America, Asia, Europe, Africa, and Middle East. And he is Bachelor of Arts in Sociology, Bachelor of Science in Pharmacology, and MBA Marketing. And the second trainer is Brother Sayyid Raziuddin Ali. May I request Brother Sayyid S.R. Ali. The short name is S.R. Ali. He's MSc in Geology. He has previously worked in Babco for 21 years, and he was a geologist for ONGC Dehradun in India, and he is the founder member of Discover Islam since the commencement in 1987. He didn't want us to mention much about him, but it is not fair on my behalf not to let you know people his involvement in Dawah and his contribution for the Discover Islam. He is the man who invented the concept of ATMT, and today's course, which we all are going to witness, the course was title given by him, DITI, Discover Islam Training Initiative. And he has been training from the time that Discover Islam has formed, and I'm sure most of your teachers or the trainers of today were the students of this gentleman. And he wants himself to be called as a servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah reward him abundantly for all his services which he has done for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ameen. And the next trainer is Brother Abdul Hamid Isa. I think you can see. Brother Abdul Hamid Isa, just wave your hand so let everybody know. He's a senior trainer in DITI, and he is a research associate in Discover Islam Bahrain. He's an examiner for IOU, Islamic Online University, which is the center for IOU exams is BI in Bahrain. So he is the examiner for that. If anybody wants any favor during the exams in IOU, keep good relation with him. He has worked as a project manager in Al Mauda establishment and many construction companies in Bahrain. And he's been associated with Discover Islam. How many years do you think? Only 20 years. MashaAllah. And he is also the teacher of mine. I have learned a lot from him. Alhamdulillah. So again, you are assured that you are in the right hands. Brother Farhat Al-Kindi, he is not here. I don't have picture to show you, I'm sorry. He is a senior tour guide, coordinator and supervisor for the visitor section in Al-Fateh Mosque. Al-Fateh Islamic Center, which is in Al-Fateh Mosque, where many of the visitors, they come and he guides them. Specialized in training of dais in ATMT, also has conducted several ATMT training programs for the tour guides in Bahrain, Oman, Malaysia, Tunisia, and Turkey. And he has experience of more than 20 years in Dawah to non-Muslims. He holds BSc in accounting from the University of Arkansas, Little Rock, USA, and previously worked as a manager, administration in Discover Islam, Bahrain, and assistant manager, career development in Gulf Air, Bahrain. And another trainer is Ahmed Anjum Shakil. He is not here also. He is a principal landscape and project management consultant of Promac Consultancy. He is a senior trainer, DITI Bahrain. He is Bachelor of Technology in Agriculture Engineering, and he is MABM, Master of Agriculture Business Management. He is Certified Project Management Professional and Certified Quality Lead Auditor. Previously worked in the Ministry of Interior and various private companies and associated with Discover Islam from past 15 years. Now the next trainer, may I request Brother Mohamed Tariq to please raise up. Salam. Brother Mohamed Tariq Najibuddin. He is a finance and screening officer at Sharia Review Bureau, Bahrain. He is a trainer in DITI Bahrain, and he holds MBA Finance, Diploma in Islamic Finance qualification. Previously worked as an account officer at the University of Bahrain and in-chap shipping services, associated with Discover Islam for over 10 years. And the next trainer, may I request Brother Abdul Aziz Khattab to please raise up. He is a journalist by profession, deputy editor for a leading trade journal called Gulf Construction in Bahrain, trainer in DITI Bahrain, admin of Discover Islam Facebook page. And he holds degree in agriculture sciences, diploma in journalism, diploma in Islamic banking and finance, diploma in teaching English as a foreign language. Has deep interest in Muslim affairs, family matters, character building, and charity. Associated with Discover Islam activities for quite a long time. Number of years are unknown. And let me give you a good glad tidings, if at all, if any one of you would like to publish your article in Gulf Construction, be good to him. And the last trainer, who is none other but myself, Muhammad Mujahid, working as a department head and a trainer in DITI. I am diploma in agriculture engineering as well as Bachelor of Technology in Agriculture Engineering. And I'm also certified in project management. I'm certified irrigation designer. I'm a certified irrigation contractor and associated with Discover Islam from past 10 years. Do you have any questions about the trainers? I have one more question to ask you. Do you want to know Brother Ahmed Anjum Shakil? Yes, he is here. May I request Brother Ahmed Anjum Shakil to please raise up and say salam to everybody.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Jazakumullahu khairan. With this, my job comes to an end. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, brother, for such useful information. We indeed look forward to being taught by such an esteemed panel of trainers and are also humbled to be in their presence today. I would now like to call upon Brother Mohammed Tariq, yet again on stage, to deliver to us the ground rules. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Let's just go quickly through the ground rules. In any professional setup, you require certain rules to be put in order for the course or the organization to run smoothly. So we have just devised a simple guideline, a simple set of rules, which won't be too difficult, not too demanding, but if adhered to, will ensure that this course runs smoothly, inshallah. I won't be required to talk much. The slides are self-explanatory, so we'll go through them together. These are the points we are discussing today. Is this timing comfortable? 8 to 10? Yes? Right. So you pray Isha and Rifa, or? Yes, delayed. Or we might have to check out the break. Right. No, we won't use the whole 2 hours. So we should, inshallah, be able to end at 10 o'clock, even if we start at 8:15. So agreed, 8:15, is that good for everybody? 8:15's, most trainers will be here and starting sharp at 8:15, inshallah. Today there was registration, there was a slight delay. Otherwise, inshallah, 8:15 will start. Agreed? And Isha is going to get a bit later. It's going to be a bit more challenging for you. Yeah, yeah, then you pray Isha here, inshallah. There is a small mosque set up here. Okay. Tea break is there for 10 minutes, 9:10. If you are here, you'll appreciate that too. Since you are given files, you can doodle, but make small points. But overall, you'll be provided with everything you require. So not to worry, inshallah. I know the seats are comfortable, but you know. Right, this is the toughest slide. This is the most challenging slide. Yeah. So 150 marks. This is. And since you will be getting a certificate at the end, your marking will be shown in the certificate, and this is how the markings are. Anything above 120 or above, you get an A+. We're a bit too generous, 30 marks, right? 105 to 120 is an A, 90 to 150 is B. But we're also tough at the lower level. You have to get at least 90. Yes. Anybody at below 90 will get a participation certificate. You won't go empty-handed. It's no fun without the quizzes. Yes.
If you can go back.
Yes.
Yeah. How is it minimum attendance 11 classes? How is it 11 classes?
That's 70% of the course, because we have how many sessions, brother? 16? Brother, huh?
8, right?
8? Is this a typo?
8 weeks.
8 weeks? Is this a typo? 11 classes? Yes? Right. So 70% of the 8. So that makes it what? 6? Roughly 5, 6, somewhere there.
6 classes.
6 classes. So you can that miss maximum of 2 classes, right? That won't be tough, inshallah.
So that's a mistake. 15 minutes should be 7 quizzes. Yeah, 15 minutes each. Yeah, right.
Yes. So 7 quizzes. There is no quiz today,
10 quizzes.
right? 7 quizzes. We're doing too many courses. Right. We had to put it in because in previous courses we had sometimes half an hour spent on a completely out of subject question, right?
The quizzes will be written or
It will be a multiple choice objective type question.
Written. Yes, tick off.
You just tick it.
Yes.
Choices.
So this is a takeaway from the ground rules. You're here to become a trainer. As you can see, there are a lot of seniors here who want to pass on this duty. And for sure, there are some bright minds sitting on those seats. You have to look at yourself as coming and delivering it here, inshallah, very soon. Yeah?
Jazakallah khair. So we'll ensure that we adequately prepare for the course, inshallah. I believe we are all a bit tired now, so we'll have a small tea break of not too long, 10 minutes, inshallah, and we'll come back to the hall. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulil Kareem alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Birahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, all praise is to Allah, Lord of all worlds. Salutations, peace and blessings be upon His beloved messenger, Muhammad, his companions, his family, and the entire Muslim Ummah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we have some people out there still? Okay, just two, inshallah. We'll start off without them. My name is Mohammed. I'll be your trainer, I think, only for one session, inshallah. And
Trainers for one session.
each trainer is for one session, so you get a good variety of people. That's a good thing, inshallah. I'm not too crazy about using a PowerPoint, but there's a big list I have here of items that I'd like you to look at. So look at it, take it down if you want to, but inshallah we'll have more of an interaction. So this particular session, I've called it the art of da'wah. It's really more along the lines of giving you a few tips. But before we get to that, let's look at the verse of the Quran. Brother Tariq, was this one of the verses that you read today?
No.
It wasn't this one, right? But we are all familiar with this one, right? From Surah An-Nahl.
Yes.
Okay. Call people to the path of your Lord with wisdom and inspiring speech. Reason with them in a superior and respectful manner. Certainly your Lord knows best who strays from his path and who is guided. I feel in a nutshell, this particular verse of the Quran is what DITI or all da'wah training is all about. If you pay attention to different parts of this verse, you'll get everything that we're talking about. The rest of it is all details. Details that you can learn, but if we understood this verse properly and we followed it, we'd be the best da'is possible. It tells us what we are required to do. Call people to the path of your Lord. It tells us how to do so with wisdom and inspiring speech. It talks about reason, talks about emotion. But that last part of it, certainly your Lord knows best who strays from his path and who is guided. This is a big reminder for us as da'is. It's a big reminder to us as Muslims that we don't know what will become of us. So if we think we are better than the people that we're reaching out to, we may be gravely mistaken. This last verse reminds us that we have to humble ourselves in front of Allah and in doing this work. So I'd like you to think a lot more about this, and inshallah not one of these sessions right now, but in the future we are planning on doing an entire workshop based only on this verse. So for now, in this course that you're taking, the 8 weeks, we will be talking about this all the time, and you'll see it in the various topics that come up, or the various tips that I bring across to you. But this verse is pretty much everything you need to know as a da'i. The more you think about it, the more you'll realize that it tells you everything that this course, the rest of this course, is going to give you. So very simply, I'll give you some general tips about da'wah. I'll keep it very easy, very, very simple, so that I can understand. Inshallah, all of you can also understand. So everything that we do is by intention, right? We are required that every single act we do has to be by intention. If our intention is correct, then that act is accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the same applies to da'wah. Why are you doing this? Ask yourself. So first thing that you have to convince yourself internally. Make sure that you understand fully and believe why each and every act you're doing. Any act of ibadah becomes an act of ibadah only if you do it for the sake of Allah. If you're doing this for fame, if you're doing it for fortune, if you're doing it for any other purpose, then it is for that purpose. Every action is by intention. So the first thing you've got to understand about doing da'wah is, why are you doing this? If you're doing it for the pleasure of Allah, that is the best and only reason why you should be doing this work. Thank you, Brother Tariq. That's much better. Nice and warm. The second thing is knowledge. You can't tell people, you can't teach people something you don't know. You can't invite people to something you have no knowledge about. If I don't know a single verse of the Quran, how can I deliver a message from the Quran? If I don't know anything about Islam, what am I going to invite them to? Fair enough? So everything that you do, any profession you're in, if you are required to ask people to join you, even if you're inviting somebody to your own home, if you don't know where you live, you can't tell the person where to come. If you are inviting people to Islam and you don't know anything about Islam, you cannot deliver that information. So you can only invite people to this way of life if you yourself know something about this way of life, even if it be one verse. Deliver this message even if it be by one verse. The next is wisdom. How do we define wisdom? That's a difficult one. Most of us are not very wise, with the exception of our learned brother here, who is the head of WISE. For those of you who don't know, WISE is the weekend Islamic schooling and education that we have. We try to impart to these children that we are teaching here what to be wise. So what is the meaning of wisdom? One way you can think of it is to first listen. To first listen. That's an easy thing to say. A very, very difficult thing to do. Try it sometime. It's very difficult to actually sit down, pay attention, and really listen to what the other person is saying. Try to listen without thinking what you're going to say next. That's very, very tough, right? Think about it for a moment. Try to listen without thinking what you're going to say next, and just taking in information. Right? Think about it. Just for a moment, I want to stop and ask you to listen to what I'm saying and try to just take in the information. Take in the information without thinking of something else. Take in the information without responding to it. When you're having a conversation with someone, how much are you willing to listen? So listening is a key component of wisdom. The next is, when you listen, you learn. Is that bothering you, brother? The light there?
Should I switch it off?
No, it's okay. If people can see it, it's fine.
We were able to see it even before. I think this is distracting a bit. So
It's distracting. Okay, we can turn the light down, inshallah. Not a problem.
Can dim it off.
We can. Yeah, that's fine.
it's fine.
Everybody okay with that? Okay, we'll keep it that way. So first is to listen. Then from what you listen, you learn. You take it in. You integrate that information. You process that information. I'm not sure. Any of you in computers here? Can somebody tell you how? Can somebody tell me who's here in computers? Anybody in computers? No IT professionals here? Wow. Okay, at last. Okay. So I think there's something like a logical unit, right? An integrated logical unit, they call it? Okay, so it takes in information and processes it. So the same idea here. You listen, we take in information. We take in information by our eyes, by ears, by all the different senses we have. So we take in the information. We need to process that information. So you process that information. That's part of the learning part, and understanding how to deal with it. So each situation that you run into with people is a different situation. That's the meaning of wisdom. Knowing what to say, when to say, how to say, why to say even sometimes, that's critical. So sometimes when somebody comes to you and wants to, let's say for example, you come across a group of people and they are not really praying or anything, they don't know much about Islam, but they're hungry. So what do you give them first? You give them food. That's pretty obvious, right? May not be obvious to some of our brothers who go out to villages and try to convert people to Islam without looking at the conditions of those villages, without looking at whether people are hungry or thirsty and all. So you look at the problem that people come up to you. If a friend of yours comes to you and says, "Now I've got a real problem, my girlfriend is really giving me a hard time," and the first thing you say is, "That's haram," right? Okay, without even listening. What do you say, Brother Shabil?
Give me her number.
That's nice. Yeah, so you were listening, but you were only thinking about yourself there, right? Now, if you think about your brother there, and you try to understand the problem, and you listen, you learn, you understand, then only can you give that person a solution that will be appropriate for them. But if you go out there and want to deliver the entire book on Islam to them, you lose the person. So that's the meaning of wisdom, knowing what to say, when to say, how to say, and sometimes even why to say. The next is practice what you teach. You'll notice that many of the tips that I have here are very much common sense. We all know them. I'm just putting them up to remind myself and remind you all. But this is not really rocket science. It's not something brilliant or amazing or anything. It's very common sense. So you can't teach what you don't know, and you shouldn't preach what you don't practice. You shouldn't go out and tell people pray when you don't pray. You know the common story, I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it somehow or the other, is when a father tells his son that a call comes, I say, no, I'm not here right now. Or somebody comes to, no, I'm not there. So what are you teaching your kids? To lie. And then you tell them, don't lie. So you cannot go and invite people to Islam when you yourself are not practicing that. So you can only invite people to what you yourself are practicing. If you don't know, you can't practice. If you don't practice, you can't invite, because there'll be that hollowness, that sincerity will not be there. Next is first impressions. Now this is really important, and many of us fail on this. It could be something as simple as having a bad hair day or something like that. You're all messed up or something like that. Or you're wearing bad clothes, you're not smelling nice. Bad breath. These little things make a huge, huge difference. And those first impressions are what you leave people with. So you encounter somebody for the first time, and you say Assalamu alaikum to him, or peace be with you, or whatever you say to him, greet the person, good morning, good afternoon, and the breath that comes out of your mouth looks like an entire forest of bacteria is growing in there. That's it, you've lost that person. After that, the person doesn't want to talk to you, doesn't want to listen to you. That's first impressions. I remember back in, we were going to a school, we were invited to give a lecture on Islam to a bunch of kids. And a friend of mine said, okay, I'll join you, we'll go together. So I said, okay, I'll pick you up in the morning. Picked him up, and he was dressed in a suit, and I was dressed in jeans and a shirt. And he's looking at me saying, hey, why are you dressed like this? We're going to a school, a high school, you have to create an impression. So I said, yeah, I'm trying to create an impression. So we got to the school there, and this person made an amazing impression with the teacher. I made a good impression with the kids. I was there to talk to the kids. I was not there to talk to the teacher. He spent the entire time at the back sitting with the teacher, and I spent the 40 minutes there talking to the kids. And they could relate to me because I was dressed like them. I was dressed the way the kids in the US, the ones that go to high school, are dressed. Okay, they're wearing t-shirts and stuff. I was wearing a loose shirt and all. But apart from that, I wasn't dressed in a stuffy tie and a jacket and everything. Shabil can relate to that. Okay, so I wasn't dressed like that. I was dressed more like the way they would be dressed. So I made an impression. Those first impressions are lasting impressions. Those impressions are what people carry through. And one of the biggest challenges we face when we're dealing with people of other faiths is how they view us. If they look at us as somebody they cannot see in themselves, if they look at us as strangers, if they look at us as aliens, we've lost it. It's very difficult then to make that connection with that person. So it's important that we make sure our first impressions are the best impressions. Next is keep it simple. More difficult than it sounds. It's very, very often that we get into a situation where somebody asks us a question and we really want to make sure the person understood. So we give as much information as we can. We want to try to hammer in the information. I don't want to lose. This is like, have any of you gone fishing here? Familiar with fishing? You cast your rod and you're pulling. So it's like pulling that reel, It's like I've got the fish on the hook now. I can't let go. I don't want to let go.
Fishing with fishes or something?
Okay, too much. Fishing with fish, okay? We're trying to pull in that fish, right? You're working hard at it. So here you've got somebody who's coming close to Islam. They're asking the right kind of questions. But we just want to hammer them, give them more answers, more answers. What we don't realize is the more complicated we make it, the further we are driving this person away. So one way to look at it is just imagine if you go to a Buddhist temple, or you go to a Christian church, or you go to a Hindu temple. How many words before you will be lost? How many new words can the person throw at you before you're lost? So when we meet each other, what do we say? Assalamu alaikum. Now if you meet some Christian or a Jew or a Hindu who doesn't know what Assalamu alaikum is, and you use that word, that's already one new big word, foreign word, that you've thrown at that person. Then you throw in the word Allah, you throw in the word Islam, you throw in the word jihad. Okay, he may have heard of jihad. Okay, you throw in the word Quran, and you throw in the word Muhammad, and of course you follow up Muhammad with alayhi salatu wassalam, and you go on and on like that. You've got Sawm in there, and Zakah in there, and Salah in there, and you may even throw things like some fiqh words, taqwa or something like that, and before you know it, you've lost the person. Because you've given him so many new things to take in, you've not kept it simple. And the idea behind this faith, to deliver this faith, is keep it as simple as you can, so the other person can understand. Now put yourself in that person's shoes. If you went to a Buddhist temple and they gave you a whole bunch of big words, how many words before you are lost? How many words before you cannot follow what the person is talking about? So the idea here is keep it simple. Remember, what is the purpose behind da'wah? Can anybody tell me here? To convert? Is that the objective? Invite them to Islam, right? So you're not there to convert. You're not there to convert. Fair enough? Anybody disagree with that? There are some people who would disagree with that. I've come across situations when I say that and I was almost driven off the stage. And I've had times when I've had to kind of beat people off. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't have to do that. But the point is that we're not there to convert. Hidayah, guidance, comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our job is only to deliver the message. Moving on, some more tips. Our brother here was asking me why I'm not using the little clicker. I'll be honest to you, it's a little trick. And so those of you who do give lectures or use a PowerPoint, it's a good way, because if you come here, you kind of refresh yourself so you don't have to look back as to what I'm talking about. And sometimes you forget where you are. So you have to remind yourself. That's why I don't use the clicker, because as I get older, it's hard for me to read. So I come closer here and okay, next one is be gentle, honest, sincere. I have to think of that, right? It's a little tip. We're all learning from one another, right? So I'll tell you another story, because it sometimes helps. I was invited to speak to a large group of sisters, about 200 sisters or so. And this was in Nairobi, in Kenya. And they had asked me to talk about male-female equality and things like that. And so I wanted to start with the verse of the Quran, chapter 49, verse 13. Who can tell me which verse that is? Come on. So, Ya ayyuhan nas, inna khalaqnakum. You're familiar with that verse? Everybody better be familiar.
Yes.
O humankind, we have created you from a single pair, male and female, and made you into nations and tribes so that you may know one another. Certainly the best of you is the one who is most taqwa, most aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So, I totally forgot that verse. That's the verse I wanted to start with. And maybe it was the idea of being introduced to about 200 sisters that kind of freaked me out. I completely forgot the verse. So I had the microphone in my hand. I'm going, now what do I do? It's like I have to start with this verse, but I don't remember it. And I know it's on the desk there. And so I said, this microphone's, do you have any, like a cordless mic or something? And it's like, I'm going looking for it, and I spot the little piece of paper. Okay, it's all right, I'll use this, no problem. So you need to learn little things like this. It's not being untruthful. It's just that I don't want to look like somebody who just fell off the back of a truck or something. I want to sound a little bit competent, right? So I had to resort to some little tricks. People use little cards in their hands and all. But it's a good idea that you remind yourself, because not all of us have what they call eidetic memories. We don't remember everything all the time. And some of us will attest, as we're getting older, we forget more and more. So back to what we're talking about. That was a little diversion to get back on track, inshallah. So be gentle, be honest, be sincere. Again, very simple things that we all should know, but think about them for a moment. What is meant by be honest? Be sincere. We said this, you're doing it for who? For the sake of Allah, right? So how can you be delivering a message and you have some other ulterior motive in mind? So maybe some of you have the ulterior motive that if I do da'wah to this sister, she will accept Islam, I'll marry her. Maybe that's what your motive is. I'm not looking at you, brothers, please. No. Yeah. I'm not looking specifically at you, but you can sink in the chair, no problem. Right? Be gentle. Allah loves gentleness. Don't be abrasive. Don't be harsh. Don't pound that person. Be sincere. Be honest. The key thing here is you have to love Allah's creation. You're doing it for who? For the sake of Allah. So you love people for the sake of Allah. And if you really, truly, genuinely love the other person, then it will come across in your da'wah. It will come across in the message that you're trying to deliver. Next is, keep it a message of hope. I have frequently found, especially this you hear sometimes a lot in the khutbahs, all about hellfire, and if you do this, you're going to go to hellfire. You do this, you're going to go to hellfire. But then sometimes I've switched on television channels and you get a good speaker. I find that unfortunately amongst many of the Christian speakers, they tend to have a message of hope. They are always positive. Why are we so negative then? When you read 114 chapters of the Quran, all but one start with Bismillahir Rahman and Rahim. Right? Positive. That Allah is Rahman, Allah is Rahim. And so much we have in our faith that is positive. So we start with a message of hope. Yes, you do at some point in time warn as well. You can't just be Bashir, you also have to be Nadir. Right? Both. So there has to be some balance that you strike. But start with a message of hope. Start with a positive message. Don't put people down, because nobody wants to be put down. When you give people a message of hope, they want to listen more. They get excited by what you're saying. They're interested in what you're saying. Next is start with commonalities. They say that we have 90-something% in common genetically with apes. 99-point-something% in common our DNA with apes. And yet we have so many differences, leave alone with Christians and Hindus and all, we have differences with each other. Brothers and sisters, brothers with one another, in the same family, under the same roof, and we have so many differences with each other. What about with the Christian community, with our Christian brothers and sisters? What about our Hindu brothers and sisters? How much do we have in common with them? How much do you think we have in common with them? In terms of belief, most faiths have similar beliefs. We do believe as Muslims that the root of all these faiths was Islam, right? The root of all these faiths is from Allah, right? Allah sent messengers to all peoples and all tribes. 100 and what? Thousand? Somebody? 124 something thousand prophets and messengers sent to all peoples, all tribes. So surely at some point in time, all these faiths do trace back their origins to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? So there has to be a lot in common that we have. After all, people generally are good. When you find people, it's rare. You come across people who are psychopathically evil. It's very, very rare to find such people. Most people are good. So look at those things that you have in common with them. Look at those things that we have the same beliefs. And start with those commonalities. Start with what we have in common before you move into the differences. So we have a lot in common, even with atheists and agnostics, people who don't even believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, people who do not believe in any kind of creator. We still have a lot in common with them. They still want good. So look at that good. Look at what we have in common with people. And when you are talking to people, start with those commonalities. Avoid arguments. Now this is also a tough one, because when people confront you, when people hit out at you, you want to lash back. When people argue with you, you want to argue back. I remember one time I was invited to a place in northern part of Florida. It was a small town that was a retirement community. Almost everybody there over the age of 65. So I was invited to this retirement home, and about 80, 90 something people there, almost everybody my grandfather's age. So I was already intimidated. Talking with due respect, I have no idea what you're talking about. Can I get the next question, please? Yeah. He wasn't too happy. He kept on pestering me. I said, I'm genuinely telling you, I really don't know much about this. You're probably right, for all I know, but I really don't know much about these matters. I didn't want to argue with this person. And I genuinely did not know anything he was talking about. So I genuinely told him, I don't know. But I didn't want to argue with him, because you have a really nice presentation, you talk to people, and if you get into an argument, all people will remember is that argument. Whether it's a big lecture that you have, or even if it's in a small setting, or even if it's one person you're talking to. Even that one person that you're talking to, and you give them very good understanding, you feel like you're making a connection with them, and then you have an argument with them, all you left them with is that argument. Be ready to say, I don't know. This is a very tough one for most of us, because it hurts our ego. It really affects our egos to say, I don't know. But one, if you don't know, then genuinely say, I don't know. Because you don't want to lie, you don't want to make up, you don't want to fabricate the truth, you don't want to make up some answer. If you don't know, you don't know. The second thing is that it gives you a way out. It shows your humanity. It shows that you're humble. It shows to the other person that you don't have all the answers. And most of the times we don't have all the answers. Sometimes somebody asks you a really, really difficult thing that you don't know anything about. You don't know how to answer that particular question. Better to say, I don't know. If the person really is genuine and wants an answer about that, you can say, I'll find out. I'll get back to you. I'll ask somebody who knows better. Let me take down your phone number. Let me take down your email. I'll get back to you. But be ready to say, I don't know. It's very, very difficult, because it really hurts our egos a lot. But this is a critical part of being a da'i. What I'm giving you today are just general tips. It's not getting into the heart of the matter, which the other trainers inshallah will get into. But here it's a lot of commonsensical things. Things that we frequently forget, but as da'is, these are important elements to have within ourselves. The next is pray, pray, pray. You are like farmers. We all are like farmers. When we deliver the message, we are planting a seed. That prayer is watering that seed. Because hidayah comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're doing this for the sake of Allah. So the only way that we are going to get ahead is with a lot of prayer. So pray, pray, pray. Pray before, pray during, pray after, at all times. Ask for Allah's guidance. Ask for Allah's assistance. And later on, when I'll be showing you some good examples, these tips that I'm giving you, they'll be illustrated in those examples. Next is patience. Nuh alayhi salam, how long? And the Quran says day and night. He delivered the message day and night for almost 1,000 years, right? How many people accepted Islam? A handful of people. Not even some of the members of his own family accepted. Now imagine if you were faced with that kind of rejection on a daily basis. That you deliver the message, you talk to people, and people keep on rejecting you.
Not even one per year.
How long before you give up? So where's that patience? Patience is a very big element of this work. You cannot truly be a da'i, you cannot truly be doing this work if you are not patient. Day in, day out, you'll be faced with difficulties, challenges. I mean, you read the newspapers and it's constantly there in front of us, right? Slaps on the face every single day. You cannot turn on the news without seeing something horrific being said about Islam, about us as Muslims. And that requires patience, to deal with it in a very, very patient way. Trust Allah. At the end of the day, all of this is in Allah's hands, right? If Allah wanted the whole world to be Muslim, what does it take? Nothing. It's easy, right? For Allah, it's all easy. So why is Allah putting us through all these trials? Why is Allah putting us through all these troubles? We've got to understand that it's all in Allah's hands. And Allah is just, infinitely just, infinitely just. So everything will work out. It'll all be good in the end. As long as we trust Allah, we put our faith in Allah. Moving on, I'm going to now switch gears a little bit. We talked about some tips about da'wah, very commonsensical things. Here again, it's also very commonsensical. I'm going to talk about direct da'wah and indirect da'wah. Direct da'wah is when you are delivering the message, when you are talking to people about Islam. Indirect da'wah is when you're using some kind of medium between yourself and the people that you're reaching out to. Medium meaning it could be the internet, it could be a newspaper, it could be television, it could be broadcast of any kind, radio, what have you. It could even be a letter that you write. I know most of us don't write letters anymore, but emails, fair enough. Okay, let's keep it at that. WhatsApp. Those are different ways in which you deliver the message. That's indirect. Direct da'wah is when you're directly reaching out, when you are in contact with the person that you're reaching out to. And there are two kinds, one-on-one, one-to-many. Pretty self-explanatory. One-on-one is when you meet somebody and you're talking to that one person to one person. You're not talking to a large group of people. It's not a big audience that you're reaching out to. Opportunities are all over the place. You just have to recognize it's an opportunity. Whenever you encounter somebody in any opportunity, like for example, you're traveling and you have a companion next to you. Somebody, strike up a conversation, start talking. Maybe the person doesn't know anything about Islam. You have an opportunity there. You come across these opportunities everywhere. Your co-workers, fellow students, people that you meet everywhere. But you have to step out of your own comfort zone and be ready to initiate a conversation. That's the tough part. But once you start getting going, now the way to do that is go back to this idea of wisdom. So you listen, listen, listen. People love talking about themselves. You just have to be a good listener. I'm talking, you're listening. I'm having a great time right now. I don't know about you guys, right? But people love talking about themselves, talking about the problems, talking about what they think is important. You just have to be there to listen. If you're then able to assess what they are talking about and provide a solution to them, provide something that would be an appropriate response to what they are talking about. So if you listen, you paid attention with wisdom, so you learned what they said, you understood what they said, then you can provide the right kind of response, an appropriate, a proportioned response. So somebody asks you, can you direct me to where the bathroom is? You don't give him the entire book on Islam. That's not what he asked you for. He asked you where the bathroom is, so direct him to the bathroom. So it has to be an appropriate, proportioned response. Do not overdose. Again, back to the same problem. We get an opportunity, like that fishing thing I told you, and we want to give them everything on Islam. Very commonsensical stuff. Do not quarrel, do not fight, do not abuse, do not patronize. And if you get the opportunity, provide some kind of closure. If you get the opportunity to deliver the message, deliver it. But leave an open door. At the end of the day, give that person an opportunity. Don't corner the other person. Give them an opportunity to walk away from there. Because your job is not to convert. Your job is to deliver the message. Direct da'wah, one to many. This time you're addressing a large group of people. Yes, brother?
Sheikh, I didn't get your point about provide a closure.
Provide a closure meaning that do not leave anything hanging if you get the opportunity. Again, it all depends on the scenario, it depends on the situation. If you're in a situation where you got a chance to talk to somebody, don't leave them hanging. Don't leave them where you started a conversation about something, about Islam, and then you leave them hanging in the middle. Make sure you provide some kind of closure. Give them a business card. Give them something to follow up with. Some way in which they can carry on. Because you were not able to finish off, let's say, they did not accept Islam at that very moment. They didn't take Shahada. So provide them with some kind of closure, but also leave them with the door open. Don't force them into a corner. One to many here, where we are having like what we have right now in this situation, where I'm addressing a large group of people. Okay, first break the ice. Try to establish that connection. Connection is really important. That you make a connection with people. The larger the audience, the more difficult it is, because the bigger the stage you're on, the smaller you become. Think about that for a moment. If you have a very large audience, it's very difficult to make a connection. But if you have a smaller audience, you can make eye contact. You can gauge how people are responding to you. Like I see here some nodding faces, and I really appreciate that. Because when you're nodding your face, I see, okay, I'm making a connection there. But people who are not nodding their faces and just staring at me, I'm worried. Okay, am I delivering the message or not? So I've got to make a connection with you guys. If I'm not making that connection, like I remember one time giving a khutbah, and this was really scary. So those of you who have given a khutbah and you hear this sound, it is the most scariest sound. Somebody was snoring. And it's like, oh my God, am I that boring? And you're trying very hard to concentrate, but right in front of you, 3 rows down, there's a brother there, and he's snoring away. He's asleep. Man, that was scary. I almost completely lost track of that khutbah. I didn't know what I was talking about. I had to really work hard to get back on track. So you want to establish a connection with the people that you're reaching out to. You have to be somebody they can relate to. So being personable, being somebody that they can, get them to laugh a little. It's not a bad idea, Sheikh Said Ali is sitting here in front of me. I remember in Malaysia, he had a really nice trick, and I'm going to use this trick of yours, Sheikh, if you don't mind. Yes. He asked people, I think it was, do something like this. Yeah. No, it was the finger like this, and there was 2 fingers.
Raindrops.
Yeah, so he said, like, do everybody like this. Try it.
Number 2. Now.
Okay.
The rain is increasing.
The rain is increasing.
Number
3, it's increasing more. 4. Excellent, thank you so much. Yeah, I do this every, twice a week or so, right? Thank you for the applause. So, little things like this, and you learn. I had this one brother, and I'm sure you would have loved if I did this. He had a bag full of candy, like chocolates, Toblerone actually. So every time somebody would answer a question, he'd throw a Toblerone at them, and of course he was very popular. Yeah. So I don't have any candies here. But start with commonality, build on common interest, keep it simple, keep it short, unlike what I'm doing right now, right? You got to keep it short, right, Brother Abdul? Yeah. So it's important because people lose attention after a little while. Engage the audience, try to ask questions, get them involved. The more they are involved in the conversation, the more interactive it is, the more likely that you will convey your message better. And provide venue for more information. An email address, a phone number, a website, somewhere where they can go back and reach out to you. Moving on. Let's talk about indirect da'wah. This is where you're using some kind of medium between you and the people that you're delivering the message to. Newspaper, WhatsApp, emails, radio, television, any kind of media. Because basically a media is plural for the word medium. Medium is what is between us right now. What is the medium between us? Is there a medium? Is language, what else is there? Air, right? That's the medium. Because what's happening from my mouth to your ears is air is being compressed, and it's compressed and dilated air that reaches your eardrum in the form of sound. And different kinds of sound produced by my mouth and my tongue and the rest of these organs here produces these different kinds of sound that you hear. That's language. And that conveys the information to you. But what I want is from here to your mind, from my mind to your mind. I want to make that connection. So in between we have this medium. Right now that medium is air. That's why in radio and television they say on air. That's what they mean. Because that's the medium you're using, right? And so television is one kind of medium, radio is another kind, newspaper is another kind, magazines, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these are different kinds of media. Now, media requires a different way to do da'wah because you are not directly engaging your audience. You do not know how your audience is going to respond to you immediately. So you need to have some kind of angle. Now here I've used some words those who are in marketing would be familiar with. You segment, you target, you position. You take your market, whichever people that you're reaching out to, could be a huge audience. You need to break it down to something that is manageable. So here in Discover Islam, for example, we've broken down the audience we're reaching out to, the different language groups. So we have the Malayalam group, the Tamil group, the Telugu group, the English, the Hindi group, right? Brother, the back there, Hindi group, right? So we have different language groups. We break down a large market into a smaller market segment. Then we target a particular segment, people who use Instagram, people who use Twitter, people who only use Facebook, people who would respond to emails or the newspaper. These are different segments that we have. Then we have to position ourselves in that particular market. How do we reach out to people in that particular segment that we are targeting? Each one of these has a different way to do it. And I'm really going fast in this, and I apologize for this. In fact, in hindsight, I shouldn't have even put this slide in here because it's a little bit beyond what I wanted to talk about. But we need to look at each medium that we're using, figure out what market we want to reach out to in that medium, how we want to deliver the message of Islam, and then use that medium effectively based on the medium, based on the people that we're reaching out to, based on that target market. We've got to think of an inverse pyramid approach. What do I mean by inverse pyramid? Those of you who are in journalism will be familiar with this. It's basically taking the most important thing and putting it on top and the least important thing at the bottom. So you start with your lead story. You start with the most important message first. So what's the most important message in Islam that we want to deliver? Tawheed, the oneness of Allah. Keep it simple. Talk about Allah. You'll be most effective talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The oneness of Allah being the best message to put out there. But it all depends on the medium. If somebody wants to address a particular issue, you address that particular issue. Keep it simple. No information overkill. Again, these are very commonsensical things we're talking about, but we frequently get into this problem where we want to give a lot of information because we think this is our only opportunity to deliver the message. Relate to local people and local places. This is important when you're using any kind of medium. If here in Bahrain, then give people local places. So here I'm going to pitch for Discover Islam, give them Discover Islam's address. This is the place for people to come to learn about Islam. So relate to local people, relate to local places, provide local information, address, where to reach out to. For any community, if you're reaching out, let's say for example you're using the internet, you're reaching out to the whole world. Now how would you relate there to somebody who's in Germany, somebody who is in Japan? You'd provide local information for those places as much as possible. Provide closure, contact information, and very straightforward stuff here. Communal da'wah. This is what we're doing here at Discover Islam, where we have a community coming together and we want to work with one another. We organize ourselves and provide da'wah. Now if you're going back, some of you come from most of you actually come from different countries. If you're going back to your own countries, or even in Bahrain, you're setting up some place where you want to deliver the message, you need to organize yourself. You have to have a strong leader, somebody who can take charge, somebody who would be there to guide you and lead you. You need to have strong research. I'm going fast through this because honestly I thought I deleted these slides. I didn't think they were there. I didn't want to provide you with this much content, but khair, it's there, it's there. There are different ways in which you can do da'wah, through visits to mosques, to school, to churches. You have to simplify your da'wah approach, use as much standardized approach as you can, and you have to provide follow-up, closure. I'll close off with a few examples. How are we doing time-wise, brother? 13 minutes, excellent. Okay. So I'll close up with 4 examples. I don't know if any of you attended one of these Art of Dawah before. What's new for everybody? Except for you. So you keep your ears closed. Yes, brother, you too. Okay. So these are real live examples, and they kind of illustrate some of the things that I talked about earlier. The tips that I gave you right at the beginning, these kind of tie in all these things together. The first one is about a Hispanic female student. This happened at a community college that I attended. I think it was Valencia Community College, if I can remember correctly. You'd be familiar. In Orlando, right. So I was invited by a professor, a history professor, to come and give a talk on Islam. And so gave a talk on Islam, about 40 minutes or so. Large audience, all different kinds of Americans and all. So at the end of it, there was a Q&A session, and kept the floor open. Anybody could ask questions. So this Hispanic sister, Hispanic meaning Spanish speaking, Latina, she stood up and she started asking me questions. I said, okay, answered the first question. Then she asked another question, answered the second question. And at one point she stood up, and she was not well dressed, if you understand what I mean. She stood up and said, look at me, I'm beautiful. Why should I cover myself? She was of that mindset. So I answered the question. The lecture was over. I mean, she kept on asking questions, and I'd answer. And then finally the professor stepped in and said, okay, let somebody else ask questions. So then after the lecture was over, the Q&A session was over, she came up to me, and I'm standing with the professor, and she keeps asking me questions, one after the other. And I'm backing off, and she keeps coming closer and closer. I go right up to the wall, and she still is coming close and asking me questions. And now it's getting really, really uncomfortable. Finally, managed to get out of there, right? I said, alhamdulillah, that was a close call. So that day, that week rather, on Friday, I pull into the masjid. This was the Masjid Rahman, Golden Rod Mosque, right? I pull in and get out of the car, and a woman says hi to me. Now this is very strange. A woman saying hi, not even salam alaikum, but hi. And I turn around, and it's the same Hispanic sister, this time a little bit modestly dressed. Okay, hi. Okay. The following week, again I see her. This time she's a bit more modestly dressed. She now has some kind of scarf on. For 8 weeks, I keep seeing her at the masjid every Friday. On the 8th week, we run into each other in the parking lot again. And she says, Salaam alaikum to me. I said, Wa alaikum salam. I said, I really like this thing. I think I'm going to go for it. I said, excellent, go for it. Alhamdulillah. But the point being that the people who are most obnoxious, the ones who really, really make life hard for you, and they ask you the really tough questions and keep on wanting to hammer you, it's because there's something inside their heart, something inside their minds. There's a vacuum, and they're hoping you're going to fill that vacuum. So she was most curious, and there was something inside her that kept on bugging her. So she wanted to ask those questions. And that's why she was behaving the way she was. So sometimes the people who are the most difficult are the ones who are closest to Islam. It's just for you to be there as a conduit, as a medium to provide that information to them. The second story I have is about this radio talk show host. So if you watched one of the Discover Islam documentary films, you'll see him in one of the films. He's the one with tattoos on his arms and all. So this guy, shortly after 9/11, probably around December of that year, 2001, he started attacking Islam on his radio station. In the US, radio is really big. People listen to radio a lot. And he was there at drive time in the morning, prime time, from 6:30 a.m. to about 9 a.m. in the morning. Every morning, he'd be on the radio. And he started attacking Islam and Muslims. And as a policy, our organization in Florida, as a Muslim organization, our policy was we don't respond to these kind of attacks, because they own the airwaves, they control the media. If you respond to them, you're playing to their game. So our standard policy was let them bark as much as they want to, we're not going to respond to it. And we didn't. But some members in our community took it upon themselves to go on air and start, in their mind, defending Islam. And this went on for a while. By March of the following year, 2002, this person had become huge. and mainly attacking Islam, and he'd have people calling him in, Muslims, and he'd have a field day with them. He'd have a really good time with them in terms of attacking Islam even more, and he became one of the most popular talk show hosts in all of southern United States. His listenership went from something like 200,000 to about 500,000 listeners within a span of 3 months. So he was making a lot of money out of this. Now he got to the point where he now attacked our community. He said specifically, this mosque on this road, they are harboring terrorists. They have a school there training kids how to become terrorists. This person had gone too far. It was now a matter of safety. So we found out from a friend of a friend, we arranged a meeting with this person, and we met him in a Mexican restaurant, me and the imam of the community, and we had a couple of hours session with him. We had lunch together, we talked to him about Islam, we invited him to that same terrorist school. So he came the following Thursday. He spent the whole day with us, 7 hours. But from that day onwards, this is not a conversion story by the way, from that day onwards, he stopped attacking Islam and he went on the defensive, defending Islam. So he'd call me up early in the morning and tell me, get me on the air and talk positive about Islam. He'd ask me tough questions on the air, but it was an opportunity for us to explain Islam to people. So sometimes it's a matter of just talking to the people the right way. That's the example of that. The third one is Katrina, a church. You're familiar with Hurricane Katrina?
Yes.
It's a very famous hurricane back in, 2005? 2005, right? It was 2004 or 5, I can't remember. In New Orleans was hit in a very, very big way. So our community, what we decided was we need to help these brothers and sisters who've been affected very heavily by this hurricane. And so in Florida, we had a large community of doctors, an oddly large number of doctors in our community. So we sent out truckloads, a 40-foot truck and several cars loaded with medicine, water and all, up to help in New Orleans. So on the way there, some cops, they stopped us and said, the roads are all blocked, not passable. Why don't you go to this tiny community? There's nearby a small church community, and go and visit them instead. So we ended up in this really tiny, typical American little town. And the town was pretty much empty, all flooded with lots of trees fallen and everything. The place was completely flooded. And we are driving in on the main street, and there's no sounds from anywhere. The homes are all empty and everything, but we were told that there is an entire community and they've not received any help. So we drove right up to the end of the road, and at the end of it there was a little church there, a tiny little white church, and we could hear sounds from the church. So the brothers got out. We had these machetes and those, the ones that, the chainsaws, right, thank you, I was looking for that word. Chainsaws and things like that. So we got a bunch of brothers, some of them in kufis, skull caps on their heads, and they've got these chainsaws in their hands, and they're breaking it apart, and they enter a church, and people are all sitting on pews on top of the tables and all, and it's flooded. And we are walking in, a bunch of Muslims dressed like the way we are, many of us with beards and all, and with chainsaws and all. So these guys, they've been sitting there, this Christian community, praying for angels, and here come a bunch of terrorists into their church ready to kill them. So we go there, we help them out, and we provide them with water, with medicine and all. And we deliver the message of Islam not by telling them anything, but through our actions. So this third example of you don't even have to speak sometimes. It could be at a stoplight, you're stopped, and somebody is really anxious to get ahead, and you let that person go ahead. And you do it for the sake of Allah. It could be as small a deed as that, and that would be enough to make that person think, why did this person do this? So every little act that you do, opening a door for someone, being kind, considerate, loving, generous, merciful, every one of these acts could be an act of da'wah. It doesn't have to be that you even speak. It could be simple actions, and those actions are far, far bigger than any words that you can put out. This last story I'll tell you about, and it's where I'll close off, inshallah. It's a story about a friend of mine. A friend of mine, he had the habit, like our brother here, brother Sayyid Akbar, of going to hospitals, visiting hospitals and visiting the sick. So this brother, he tells me this story that he was one time in hospital in Washington D.C. and he came across an old woman who was hooked up to tubes and she had monitors and all, but he passed by her room, saw her all alone sleeping, and every now and then he'd pass by the rest of the hospital beds. There'd be people, there'd be visitors and all, but this particular woman, she was all alone. He saw her for 2-3 days like this. Finally he got the courage and he went and sat next to that woman at the foot of the bed. Notice a very, very old woman, looked like she was probably in her 80s, and she was hooked up to some machines and everything and sleeping. So he sat next to the foot of her bed, and she opened her eyes very briefly and closed her eyes again and all, and he just sat there for a while. He left. The next day he came back and he got a little bit more courage. He went and sat next to her head. He put his chair there and sat there. So she opens her eye, closes it. He holds her hand. She's an elderly lady, so don't go or haram on me. Yes, okay. He holds her hand and just holds her hand for a little while. And this old woman, she opens her eyes, closes, and finally she opens her eyes and asks him. Backtrack a little. She opens her eyes, and the first thing that comes into his mouth, and he tells me the story, he doesn't know why these are the first words that came to his mouth. He says, "Mommy." He doesn't use any other word. He doesn't say hello, how are you, hi. The first thing that Allah inspired him to say to this really old woman was "Mommy." And this woman starts crying, really, really crying a lot. And she said, for the last 30 years, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I haven't heard these words in the last 30 years. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I've not heard these words in the last 30 years. And she cries a lot and asks him, why are you doing this? Who are you? He said, I'm a Muslim. And she said, what is a Muslim? So he tells her what being a Muslim is, that I believe in one God, and I believe in Muhammad as being the final messenger of God, alayhi salatu wassalam. So she says, I want to be that. I want to be a Muslim. Can I be a Muslim? And he says, yes, of course you can be a Muslim. So make me a Muslim. He says, repeat after me. She takes the Shahada and she believes. And he tells her he's going to visit her again, bring her some gifts and everything. He's very happy. He leaves and he comes back the next day. And the bed is empty. There's nobody there. So he goes and asks at the nurse's station, what happened to this old lady? And he says, in the middle of the night she passed away. So just imagine. But this is the opportunity that we have as da'is. We have the opportunity to deliver this message. And sometimes deliver the message to people that we cannot even imagine that these people will accept Islam. Sometimes to people who are really rude to us, who are really bad to us. Sometimes to people through our action, not necessarily through words. And sometimes to people like this. We don't know when Allah will accept. May Allah accept from all of us. So I'll close with that. Jazakumullahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.